Alrighty. Everyone, hello, welcome, good day, good evening, good time zone to you all, and welcome back. We're coming to you live here from beautiful Bungie HQ in Bellevue, Washington. My name is Andy, and I work on the social media team here at Bungie, and today we're thrilled to get to welcome all of you into a very special stream, talking a little bit about what's to come with Act 1 of episode Revenant, launching just next week on October 8th, and also we're going to go ahead and take a little bit more of a look further down the road and talk a little bit more about Codename Frontiers. But worry not, just like always, you don't have to listen to just me tell you all about it. We have some amazing folks from the Bungie development team here to go ahead and talk through it as well. And I say there's no time like the present. Let's introduce our cast of characters so we can go ahead and dive on in. Starting with someone that you may know if you've tuned into our Into the Light streams in the past, the one and only Jerome Viernich, senior narrative designer here at Bungie. Jerome, how's it going?
It's great. I'm glad to be here. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. And welcome back again. For the folks that may not have seen you on this show before or had a chance to go ahead and check out the Into the Light streams, can you tell us just a little bit about who you are and what you do here at Bungie?
Sure. I'm a writer on our fantastic writing team, so that means dialogue, tending to the garden that is our lore, and doing UI UX strings.
The fun stuff. So you're the blank space filler.
That's right. That's right. Press X. That's me.
Okay, I hold down E personally, but we can discuss that
That's
later.
not my department.
That's all right. You know, we're here we're crossplay friendly. It's okay. And then also sitting just next to him, someone who is joining us now in front of the camera, previously a member of our behind-the-scenes fire team, who does so much of our heavy lifting. The one and only Clayton Kisko, staff designer here at Bungie. Clayton, welcome.
Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Doing well, thank you. And hey, second verse, same as the first. Can you tell the folks at home a little bit about who you are and what you do here at Bungie?
Yeah, so I'm a staff designer here, and I work primarily within the activities department. So I am in charge of building the skeleton and framework of the activity, developing the encounters and the boss fights as well, and building that amazing roller coaster that you tend to go on as
We've been writing it for a while. Thank you very much for all your hard work. Given that today's Tuesday and reset day, I have plenty to dive into. Thanks to you and yours. So thank you a ton, Clayton.
Yeah.
And sitting just next to him, someone that needs no introduction, but will still risk it anyway, just to make sure everyone's all caught up. The one and only the sandbox craft lead here at Bungie, the one and only Mr. Chris Proctor. Chris, how's it going?
Good, thanks, Andy.
So anyone who may not have seen you on the Into the Light streams in the past or heard you in podcasts around the community, can you tell us just a little bit about who you are and what you do here?
So I'm Chris Proctor, Sandbox Craft Lead on Destiny 2 here at Bungie. I work with the rest of the Sandbox team and Destiny leadership, other teams, to make sure that we're always hitting that gameplay quality bar that Bungie is renowned for. I occasionally also make a few things for the game.
Yep, it's not an easy job, but we thank you all for doing it. And also I want to note, chat's calling you out immediately. You're getting a lot of love already. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Now, we're going to go ahead and dive into episode Revenant, which again is launching just next week on October 8th. But before we go ahead and dive into that, Jerome, we're on the verge now in the last week of completing episode Echoes. Can you tell us a little bit about the story that got us to where we are now?
Sure, absolutely. Well, let's start with the death of the witness, who we thoroughly destroyed.
Absolutely.
And his giant, smoky, billowing head dissipated into a mist of darkness, which then coalesced with the Traveler's Light, right, crystallizing into the Echoes. Which fell into the Soul System. One of those fell, of course, to Maya Sundaresh, which we know from episode 1. And it fundamentally changed how the Vex saw themselves. And now we're going to get the same treatment with the Scorn, because one of the Echoes will be falling to Fikrul, leader of the undead Elixni army. And similarly, that Echo is going to prompt the Scorn to evolve, to see themselves in a new way, and to fundamentally change what they are. And I won't spoil anything. I'll let players discover that for themselves. But suffice it to say, Fikrul is evolving his army, he's growing his army, and in order to build Scorn armies, you need a bunch of corpses.
Interesting.
Which is not necessarily in the best interest of the Elixni. So we will be teaming up with Mithrax.
Speaking of Fikrul, we see him right here as well. Now we're taking a look at the new art for episode Revenant as well. So Fikrul's gotten a bit of a glow up, I think.
Absolutely. This whole episode is metal, and I think that shows it right there. That accurately depicts the tone of the season.
It's not messing around. I will say, we won't watch the trailer today, but when folks see the trailer, you're right. Metal is the right word to use.
So much slaying.
Seriously.
It's going to be awesome. But the Elixni, of course, want to prevent this, and so we'll be teaming up with Mithrax, the Kel of House Light, and his daughter, Ido, the adorable Ido.
must be protected at all costs.
Absolutely.
Thoroughly, yeah.
And she will be bringing her expertise in herbology and ancient elixir lore to help us craft tonics to imbue us with the power that we need to battle this evolving Scorn army.
Interesting. That is, thank you, by the way, for not only, now you've narrative directed us into our segue as well, so thank you very much. Narrative design as well. And so I think we should go ahead and dive into a little bit of gameplay, starting over here with you, Clayton. So we just heard a little bit about some new tonics and everything. Can you tell us a little bit about where we are and what we're going to be doing here? This is the new apothecary, I believe?
That's right. So we're in the apothecary space, and Jerome was just mentioning the tonics and potions that we'll be crafting. They come in 2 flavors. They come in combat flavors, and they come in reward flavors.
Okay.
The combat flavors are going to enhance, or rather boost your artifact perks, specific ones.
Yeah.
Higher rarities of these tonics will boost multiple artifact perks, which is really great.
Okay. Yeah.
And then on the reward side, we wanted to create a new or novel way to chase your gear and your weapons that you love.
Yeah.
And we took a lot of inspiration from the success of Into the Light, where players got to attune to specific weapons. And so with your reward tonics, you'll be able to attune to specific weapons within the season.
Very nice.
They're not craftable in this season, which is important to note, but you will be able to target them, and they'll have enhanced perks.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So you'll be able to go ahead and chase down that god roll you're looking so desperately for with the help of this. But also, you know, for the build crafters out there, they're going to have even more to dive into than maybe just the episode artifact and everything. These are going to go ahead and help just boost a lot of those traits, I guess, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So build crafters, make sure your appetites are whetted and ready. There's going to be plenty of stuff for you to go ahead and dive into. But we're going to go ahead also and dive into some of the meat and potatoes of today's stream, proverbially speaking. As we're on our way over to Onslaught, Clayton, I just want to go ahead and also start there. Onslaught's getting kind of a new revamp this episode as well. You guys have left proverbially very few, if any, stones untouched this time around.
Correct. Yeah. And so, you know, we heard players' feedback. They wanted to see us invest in Onslaught. We are coming out with a brand new Onslaught called Onslaught Salvation.
Yeah.
We are going to have 3 maps that you'll be in there. You will have some new defenses. We'll have enemy factions that will be fighting into the theme of this episode. Yeah. We'll have the Scorn. We'll have the Dark Cabal.
That's right.
A bunch of other new stuff that we can get into.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll be diving into that here briefly. You can see our fire team is now on their way. While we're on the way over as well, I heard a brief mention of our friends in the Shadow Legion as well. Can you tell us what the Shadow Legion is doing here and why they might be in league with Fickrel, Jerome?
The Shadow Legion are bumming. They are in utter disarray. Their leader has been slain, and they are grasping to anyone who can keep them in power.
Yeah.
And Fickrel holds the most powerful artifact around now.
Got it.
So they will be doing his bidding, though it will be a tenuous alliance.
They're going with Fickrel's Riz just for right now, but that may not be the case later on.
That's right. We will do our best to stomp that out.
Thank you. All right, fair enough. Much appreciated. All right, so now we are here. We're in Onslaught, and we're on Widow's Court.
Yeah. So PvP players will recognize this map, and they'll also recognize some of the changes that we've done to accommodate for the slaying, the amounts of slaying that is necessary for an Onslaught activity.
Yeah, a quick refresher for the folks at home that may not have dove into Onslaught recently or since Into the Light. There is the 10 level mode and the 50 level mode, isn't that correct?
Right, so Onslaught Salvation will also be coming with the 3 modes that they've had in the past, which is the playlist 10 wave mode, the normal 50 wave mode, and then we'll have our expert 50 wave mode. And the new thing about Onslaught Salvation, one of the new things, is that it will not be powered fixed like it was prior in Into the Light.
Oh, right.
Power enabled, so your armor and your weapons will matter even more.
Yeah.
It will be at the start more difficult, but you can, through getting better, more power and grinding that artifact level, you'll be able to kind of outweigh that difficulty.
Yeah.
And you'll also be able to rely on some of the new defenses as well.
I was going to say, we were just looking at a turret that maybe Guardians haven't seen since their days on the moon in D1. Can you tell us, what's going on? We got some new defenses, obviously.
We have some new defenses. So Ashley Baker is one of the tech designers we have. She's on the fire team right now, and she has helped us build these defenses, as well as other things in Onslaught. She's worked with the Sandbox team, who have knocked it out of the park with this Radical turret.
Yeah.
So it is kind of a standard rival turret at first, but by upgrade 3, it's going to have more health, it's going to be dealing more damage, but it's also going to have scorching rounds come out of it.
Okay.
And what the cool thing about that is that if you have build crafting with fragments or what have you within scorching, that will play off that if you're the rider.
Very nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can go ahead and really scorch everyone.
Everyone.
As much as
Clumps of enemies,
Yeah.
those annoying demolitionists that come in front of the ADU and scare the hell out of you.
Yeah, they do. That was my words. Okay, they do scare that.
Yeah.
All right. So in the subject or in the topic of new defenses, so we're bringing back the turret from yesterdecade of Destiny, but also there's some other ones available as well. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe some new defenses that are on the way?
Yes. So the other one that we have is the airstrike, which will have 3 cannons when you purchase it, or upgrade it. They'll be replenished there. And what that allows you to do is essentially mark anywhere on the ground.
Yeah.
And when an enemy or enemies run over it, a giant beam, it will come down from the sky and obliterate your enemies.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep a little bit of the secret for higher upgrades. I want to
that's
reveal
fair.
everything
That's fair.
here, but there's some really nice upgrades.
Nimbus liked that. We'll just go ahead and put that.
There you go.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And actually, so just to double check as well, with the airstrikes, it's not just you plant it and it fires. It actually has to wait for someone to kind of trigger that.
Waits for someone to come over. Yeah.
Very nice. Okay.
Much like the tripwire, which we are also updating. For Onslaught Salvation. We've heard the feedback about the tripwires, and we want to bring their value up a little bit more. So now they're going to be exploding with stasis slow fields. And on higher upgrades, they'll be creating stasis crystals for you to play off of if you have a stasis build, stasis weapon. And then I'm happy to share that those updates will also be available in the original Onslaught as well.
Very nice. Okay, so all the updates that are happening to the defenses that are available in Onslaught Salvation will be available in the traditional Onslaught mode as well.
Just the tripwires, Very
exciting. Okay, nice. Good to see. While we're on the topic of stasis and obviously looking at our tools for destruction, Chris, I'd be remiss if I didn't try and bring up the new breach loading grenade launcher that our fire team here is getting a lot of use out of. There's obviously a decent chunk of new weapons arriving with Revenant, but let's start here. This is the new episodic exotic?
This would be the Season Pass exotic. It's the Elephant Stasis primary ammo grenade launcher. So we've only had one primary ammo grenade launcher before, which is Fighting Lion. Which is getting a buff this season as well, actually. It'll
that's right,
make enemies volatile when it hits them, so like serious build crafting there, particularly in PvE. But anyway,
I cannot wait.
So this is a bit different in that it's also a projectiles travel in a straight line, so like mountaintop. Hits pretty hard. But the exotic part of it is that as you defeat enemies, you will gather these remnants, which will fill up the exotic bar, which you can see in the HUD when people aren't dead.
It's the shade.
Oh, they're in expert.
No, that's true. This is, we should note for the Guardians at home, this is an expert mode, so they're taking the hard way, obviously.
So when the bar reaches 50%, you can special reload, and your next shot will launch a special ammo brick for you and your allies to pick up.
Very nice.
And when you reach 100, you can special reload and launch heavy ammo. So this lets you really go in on a new type of support role, which is like ammo support, which we haven't really seen in the game before.
I mean, honestly, I think on my side, I really just spend a lot of the time getting like the Seeker and Finder mods on my helmet, but it seems like a nice additional way to go ahead and make sure that you're really feeding the fuel, of the heavy ammo burners like myself who have been addicted to microcosm recently. So
potentially you could have one person in the fire team go all in on ammo generation, and the other folks build something else.
Also, so Clayton, when it comes to the other stuff that's arriving with Onslaught Salvation, are there any new things we're looking forward to? I know that we're obviously fighting the evolved Scorn, but are there any new bosses or anything people can look forward to?
Right, so the Ficral Scorn are also going to be coming out with what we're calling the Revenant Baron.
Okay.
And that thing is scary, and you'll see it on Wave 6 here in a second when the players are instructed to go into like a Revenant nest and go and save the Elixni from being captured. These Revenant Barons, they stalk the area, and when you kill them, they will create a Revenant totem which flies in a random direction, leaving a trail so you can kind of like stalk it, find it.
You
have to kill it before it would respawn the Revenant Baron.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's some hide and seek gameplay there. And we also have for the rewards side, starting on Wave 30, Set 3, players will have a small chance to get a fully masterwork double perked episodic weapon.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, and on expert, like we're playing, if you remember, the bonus chest on harder difficulties will show up. So if you're not playing on expert, you have 2 chances.
Okay, all right. So really make sure you're pushing through those final levels. Try and hit that ceiling of level 50 so you can really facilitate the loot grind as much as you can.
100%.
Something we mentioned recently in one of our Dev Insight vlogs as well are Banes, which are going to be making an appearance here in Onslaught. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so we'll be, with the expert mode only, we'll be having Banes throughout the activity, and we'll also be adding mods. So it's really nice to have them show up because they add another layer of replayability into expert. You don't know if you're going to get the gaseous one where you got a dot on you, or if you have to break line of sight, but it adds a fun variability within the gameplay, so every wave feels different.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have, oh, please.
I just wanted to point out here, you'll notice 2 things. First off, the fire team is tracking that Revenant Baron, just like you said.
Yeah.
And also freeing captured Elixni. And as to why people want to keep Elixni captives alive, I'll save that for the players to discover.
Sounds devious.
The other thing is that you'll see Crow chiming in a lot. He's features prominently in the season.
Right,
because he is inadvertently, of course, responsible for creating Fickrel, and so it's his responsibility as the new Hunter Vanguard to rectify his old problem.
Interesting. Even though he can't be like, hey man, that was Ultron, that wasn't me. He's going to step up and take responsibility for that.
Absolutely.
Old Fickrel's fickle out there. Even to that same end too, we're going to be hanging out with Crow, with Ido, and with Mithrax, obviously the main kind of part of the story. They're going to be the ones that we're going to be hanging out with the most, you'd say, or?
There will be some other Elixni, some venerable old school Elixni that poke their heads in that you'll see some drama with. I won't say any more than that.
Fair.
But it will be in everyone's interest to see Fickrel go down here.
Okay, got it. A little bit of enemy, my enemy. In this case, they're all our enemy.
That's right.
Fair enough. Actually, really quickly, Clayton, I know we kind of touched on several different subjects here between the different defenses, different enemies, the different kind of, structural opportunities that Onslaught Salvation has provided you. What was it like, sitting down with a team and sort of looking at this new refresh on this activity? Like, did you guys take any big challenges for yourself where, like, we want to do this?
Yeah, we knew we just wanted to build and evolve and just do more.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
It's a metal episode. We want to do Onslaught. Let's metal it up.
Yeah,
right? So things like the turret, things like the Revenant Baron, we really want to play into the themes of this kind of haunting, spooky episode.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that in the roll dart. You're seeing that in the different defenses and the mechanics that we're bringing in as well. Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention too is we are updating the moth yards from the original Onslaught.
Oh, really?
We've heard feedback from there. It's taking a little bit longer. We want to bring our goal is to bring that in line with the rest of the maps of the original Onslaught. So we're making some updates there to get that to go.
Very exciting. So reasons obviously to dive into all versions of Onslaught as we go ahead and move into Revenant.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Actually, and while we're here out here, slaying out as best as we can against this new undead army, Chris, we're going to have obviously a slew of new episodic weapons arriving this time.
Yeah.
I know we've kind of spoken about this breach loading grenade launcher. Are there any other notable ones that you're most interested in, or most excited rather, I should say, in bringing back?
Yeah, there are a few weapons that I'm going to personally be chasing rolls on. I'm particularly fond of the new double fire stasis grenade launcher.
Yes.
Only the third double fire in the game, and the other 2 are energy slot.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to run this in your kinetic slot. It's got the new perk Envious Arsenal, which is like directly targeted at damage rotations. So whenever you do damage with the other 2 weapons, the weapon reloads.
Yeah.
So you can just cycle between your weapons, get it back. And it also has chill clip, which on a double fire is particularly cool.
That's like devious, honestly.
Twice or 4 times.
Yeah.
There's also some cool synergies with the new perks on some of the other weapons. So the hand cannon can run the new perk Rhyme Stealer, which every time you shatter a stasis crystal or a frozen enemy will grant you frost armor.
Yeah.
Which is the new verb we introduced recently.
Right.
And that can also roll with Headstone, which will generate stasis crystals.
Yeah.
So you've got this like self-contained loop there.
Yeah.
Submachine gun is an arc precision, and that's got the new perk. Shoot, what is the name of that?
My memory's failing me.
Anyway, it directly ties back into Jolt, right? Like the Vault Shot is great, but it requires a reload on your weapon after a kill.
Yeah.
This one's triggered on sustained damage. So you'll jolt the target, and then the perk I'm going for in the other column is Loose Change, which every time you apply a debuff gives you a reload speed buff. So you'll be constantly having that loop cycle.
Yeah. And also, so we're going to look at the new artifact here in a little bit once we go ahead and move through this final wave of what's in front of us right now. But there's also, it's been featured a little bit in some art about Destiny's 10th anniversary, an exotic of yesteryear, we'd say, for all the Guardians who have been sticking around for a while, rather. Icebreaker is returning.
Yeah, Icebreaker is coming back. It's something that we've been holding off on doing just because the ammo economy issues that are introduced in Destiny 1 were pretty dire.
Yeah.
But we've got a version here which we think lets you get back into that fantasy of just like always having uptime on the weapon without letting you just hang back and like clink away at enemies from range, which we never liked. So the way it works is assists and final blows with other weapons will just generate ammo for Icebreaker.
Got it.
And it's got like a 10-round magazine, which is also the same size as reserves.
Yeah.
So the play is that in between boss damage phases or something, you and your team slay out, and as long as you're getting assists or kills, you'll come back in fully loaded.
Got it. Yeah.
And in Destiny 1, there wasn't actually any ice to break, right? So this time we actually have a bunch of ice that you can break. I won't go into detail because we've got limited time. But
fair enough. Okay.
Ties deeply into
this stasis episode will certainly be giving people a lot of reasons to break the proverbial ice by the sounds of it. No, that's very exciting to check out. Now, while we're still here, let's go ahead and check out the new artifact that's going to be arriving. We love getting a chance to show all of you folks this early so you can go ahead and start your build crafting. But Chris, I know obviously last time around, if I had to kind of paint it with a meta I'd say rather, it'd be very focused on sniper rifles, solar. If there was a similar theme for this particular artifact, what would it be?
So it goes very hard into stasis. Like touches all of the stasis verbs. If you want to make a stasis build, you can amplify it in a bunch of ways here. We're also adding a bunch of grenade launcher perks. So we've got overload grenade launchers, which is great, like tagging those like super deadly overload champions.
Yeah.
Also bringing back a variant of like everyone's favorite grenade launcher artifact perk, Breach and Clear.
Oh, yes.
So you can weaken enemies, and then when you boost it, you can get the second part of that old perk.
Nice.
We were saying earlier, you can boost artifact perks with the potion system.
That's right, yeah. Good. I also will admit I'm very selfishly excited to see anti-barrier scout rifle back. It's been so long.
Anti-barrier.
I've missed it.
Barrier scout is great.
I'm going to pretend like that's just for me, for my own benefit today.
We're trying something a bit different with this artifact as well, in that the first column is all anti-champion mods, and the final column is all of the pinnacle ones, like the capstones for your artifact build.
Right, yeah.
But columns 2, 3, and 4 are roughly equivalent in power, which will let you mix and match them more freely instead of feeling like you have to like go for the top tier ones. They're all usable in builds.
It's less of a linear escalation and more of just a mix and match in a lot of ways. Very exciting. Okay, so there'll be plenty of opportunities for players to go ahead and amplify their builds, go ahead and really lean into one play style. If, again, you're like me and want to run double grenade launchers, this feels like a remarkably great season to be doing that, especially with the Fighting Lion buff. Thank you for sharing that with us. But I believe that actually wraps us up for this particular segment of Onslaught, but there's also a couple more things that I wanted to go ahead and tease for the arrival of Act 1. For starters, an old favorite strike is going to be making its return. The inverted spire is returning. But Clayton, it's not coming back exactly as people remember it, is it?
Nope. We're taking an approach and adjusting all the encounters, and you'll see more Vex than what you're used to.
That's true. I can confirm. My compatriot on the social media team, Mitch, showed me through it a little bit. The only thing I'll spoil is if you like death lasers, you're going to have a great time out there. And then in addition to that, there's one more thing we wanted to add in. Arriving with Act 2, mind you, of Revenant, and I'm going to read this to make sure I get it right, inspired from a fan favorite activity from Destiny's past. We're going to go ahead and bring back an activity, but we're not going to tell you anything outside of that. So chat, speculate, let us know what you think. Go ahead and shout us out on Twitter or wherever it is you like to hang out online. With that, I think we're going ready to get ready, for the next segment. But in the meantime, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and share a little bit of what's arriving with Revenant. We appreciate your time so much today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
It takes a lot to make me look good, so thank you guys for stepping up here and helping out. I appreciate it. Now, as we transition into our next stage, we've got what we've called in my notes the cool stuff segment, and I think it lives up to that. So we'll go ahead and show you a little bit more of what's to be arriving with Revenant, including what you're seeing here on your screen right now. This is the second earnable skimmer that's going to be arriving in Destiny 2. The aptly named, we'll wait for it to highlight, the Surfboard. I was so glad that that was the name that stuck. As you can see, it features some very unique 9 styling, inspired by Xur himself. Both top and bottom are very arted up. The top's obviously a little bit more visible here, but if you do a sweet front flip or back flip, if you're capable of it, you can go ahead and see all sides of it. Notably, this is going to be earnable. So if you go ahead and start saving up those strange coins now, it's going to cost you 97 of them. So if you're like me and spend your weekends spending all those extra strange coins at Xur to go ahead and get more rolls on your exotic class item, maybe save up for a week or two. Also, because I work here, I've started saving up already, spoiler alert. But the Xur board will be available with the arrival of Revenant. So make sure and go ahead and grab the first earnable skimmer since the Guardian Games. In addition to that, we obviously have mentioned very recently that we're going to be having a new dungeon arriving with Revenant, and as a part of this, we're going to be doing a dungeon race in cooperation with our friends over at Twitch Rivals. We've put the sign-up link out there. It's available on our social media channels or in the TWID, or if you prefer your URL's phonetic, it's bung.ie/Twitch Rivals. You can go ahead and head out there, sign up with your fire team, and make sure that you're ready to go ahead and take on this new challenge, which will again also provide some additional chances for Bungie rewards. You can see here on screen, we've got a look at the hoodie that will be earnable along with the bracelet. But perhaps what's most interesting about the hoodie is that as a part of the dungeon race, if you're one of the top 3 teams to go ahead and cross that proverbial finish line, then we'll be able to ship out a special embroidered version with your gamer tag on it as well. So make sure and go ahead and dive on in and prepare to try and cross that finish line first. And now we're also going to take one quick look. Festival of the Lost is going to be arriving with Act 1 of Revenant as well, and if you all remember, you took a chance to vote on some armor sets for yourselves. So Hunters up first. You can see here we've got the Evil Wizard set. I myself am very looking forward to adding this to my collection. The Evil Gothic set is just going to only dial up more and more. Up next, our friendly neighborhood Warlocks. You've got this to look forward to, including what I think we affectionately refer to as probably the coolest pants we've all ever seen over here at Bungie. And breaking out from the crowd, the good wizards this time around. Titans, you went ahead and voted for it this way. You're going to have the chance to go ahead and add this into your arsenal as well. So make sure that you're prepared to go ahead and dive on into Festival of the Lost and grab this stuff once it's available. And I'm going to be doing that. So maybe I'm just projecting. But either way, make sure and get ready to go ahead and update your fashion where you can. But now we get to move on to our second segment of the show, where we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about what's further on down the road. So we've talked about what's just around the corner. Let's look forward to frontiers. And here to help me discuss those topics today, that topic today as well, rather, are these 2 fine individuals to my left, which you've met at some point or another. But again, we'll make sure and introduce them to everyone out there in the crowd. We'll start with you first, Allison. Allison, how's it going?
It's going so good. I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
We're up so early. I'm doing well, thank you so much.
Good.
Allison, obviously narrative director here on Destiny at Bungie. Can you tell anyone who may not have seen you in a Vidoc or one of our past streams a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I'm the narrative director for D2. It is me and my team's job to tell stories. It's our job to take care of our characters, of our arcs. We make you laugh. We make you cry. We make you have feelings that you normally don't have to have in your usual day-to-day life.
I was raised not to feel feelings, so it's a very upsetting experience when I do.
Feelings are distressing.
Oh, no.
I understand. We also get to plan future things, planning ahead for the arcs to come.
Yes.
And the
saga
to come.
About. I know, the whole new saga. We'll have a little bit to dive into as well today. I know, I'm so excited. And then also sitting next to her, Robbie Stevens, assistant game director here at Bungie, a man that I've not had a chance to interview since back in my Mixer days. But if you've tuned into these Bungie streams in the past, you've seen him as well. Robbie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Andy. And I think you've grown a lot since those days.
Thank you. It's been so long, right? Yeah. My badge changed and everything. For the folks that may not know you, may not know what a game director does. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so one of the main things I do as assistant game director for Destiny 2 is I work on the creative direction and vision for where we're going with Destiny coming up in the future with Codename Frontiers. So I get to work with our game director, Tyson Green, and Allison Lurs, our narrative director, and a bunch of our other creative leaders on how we shape the future of Destiny to come.
Very exciting, which we are going to be diving into now. I know we've obviously released some blogs about the Codename Frontiers stuff already. If you've been out on Bungie.net reading the Dev Insight blogs, there's been a good amount to dive into, but our friends over on the community team as well have been helping us kind of, read more into what the audience feedback has been and what the players are saying. And so we've had obviously some topics come up. up that I think we should just go ahead and dive on into.
Let's party.
Absolutely. Okay, that's the right attitude. Let's party at this early in the morning. Always the answer I want to hear. So, Robbie, we'll go ahead and start with you. One of the things we said is that these expansions are going to be medium-sized. Can you help us understand a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah, definitely. So, expansions are changing going forward with Codename Frontiers, and so our philosophy behind this is moving from one really big, all-consuming tentpole moment that kind of takes all the oxygen in the room at one point in the year to two what we consider big tentpole moments happening in each year. And so those tentpole moments coming twice a year now are going to bring with them fresh content and new stories that are going to move the world of Destiny forward. And to answer your question directly, the way we're kind of looking at the size of these is similar to like Rise of Iron from Destiny 1. But this is happening like twice a year as compared to the past. And so, what's kind of the reason we're talking about this, the rough shape of the box here that we're filling is that what comes with it is like each expansion is going to have its own unique version of a campaign and post-game experience that you can dive really deep into beyond the initial playthrough, similar to how things like the Dreaming City or the Pale Heart from the Final Shape had worked, where those beyond those initial campaign experiences, there's like further things to explore and secrets to uncover. And so making our expansions unique and deeply replayable is a big goal for us, in large part to support all the new gear and the new tiering of gear that we're putting into the game, right? And so it's one about, each of these expansions, again, they're going to tell a really compelling story as part of our next saga, but I really want to stress that they're also going to be unique experiences, unique campaigns and post games.
Yeah, I know that's something like, I've kind of overheard some of the conversations where when it comes to these expansions as well, obviously the corollary we're using today is Rise of Iron, but like these are going to be brand new experiences, things that we just haven't released before in the past. Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well? Or
yeah, definitely. And so for Codename Apollo specifically, the first expansion coming up with Frontiers, you're going to journey to a Metroidvania-inspired destination, right? That's our guiding light for how we're creating this new location. And so this new destination is going to feature a non-linear campaign that puts you, in the driver's seat of exploring its world and its story. So this is very different from the past, where you're kind of following a very linear mission structure or line. That's very simple in many ways. And Allison actually recently talked a bunch about this in a blog post.
So when we made the decision to lean into that Metroidvania structure, we knew that the narrative structure had to match, had to complement that structure as well. And so the way that we're going to treat nonlinearity in Codename Apollo is when you arrive at our destination, which is a new destination, you'll be able to decide if you want to go to region D or region C, or maybe you want to go check out B, because that's going to be where you get the ability that allows you to access region A, so you can talk to that character that you really like. We really want that sense of the player being in the driver's seat, of being able to decide where and how they want to explore and discover the secrets that we have in the world. And whichever of those different choices that you make doesn't negate the others. We want you to explore every crevice inside of the experience. And to help support that, we've structured our story in a complementary way. So we'll have the normal kinds of activity dialogue that you normally experience in a campaign, but there's also between 25 and 30 different threads of stories that you can discover and chain together after you complete an activity. There's so much richness to discover that we're creating.
You see that little thread of that shining rock somewhere, you can really just afford to pull on it and just dive in by the sound
Absolutely,
of it.
That's what we want you to do.
Okay, that's awesome. So actually, let's go ahead and stay on the topic of story here for just a second as well. I think that there's been some conversations about the future of narrative Destiny, which has obviously been so central to the experience, so core to our characters and our stories. There's been some concern that maybe the new structure might not afford the opportunity for as much story in the past. Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys are planning and what that means?
That would be news to me if it suddenly vanished. I like what
Allison,
I do.
Please stay.
Please don't let go. Yeah, exactly.
Is this how we find out?
No, story is Destiny. What makes Destiny Destiny is that beating heart of story at its core. That's not going anywhere. The thing that this new structure allows us comes in two parts for story. part one is pacing. With these 2 tentpole beats a year, the feeling that the world is changing and growing and moving is going to come much quicker now, which means that we can move the plot along at a much quicker pace than we used to.
Totally.
Part 2 is focus. Because these are much more focused releases, we don't have to worry about padding the sides with a bunch of extra stuff to kind of fill in the space. Like, nope, we are zeroing in on exactly what each of these releases is trying to communicate.
Yeah.
And so that means we're going to tell a more focused story and with pacing that keeps up with what fans want.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, too, it's interesting because, you know, obviously the narrative is one big part, the story you're telling, the words on the page, but another part of it, you know, given that we have the unique opportunity with a medium like video games, is how players interact with it. We've seen some comments online and some notable conversations about, you know, go talk to vendor X, head over to the holodeck and say hello to this other person, go back to vendor X and shake their hand one more time. Can you tell us a little bit about that structure, what you guys are planning on?
Yeah, it drives us bonkers too. No, we believe that everything should be questioned, right? Like we should be questioning that structure and we should be reinvestigating it. And starting with Revenant and especially when we get to Apollo, we're going to be deliberately shaking it up. By the time we get to Apollo, that loop, that pattern is more or less gone. We're shaking things up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Allison spoke to it earlier, but all those threads that you're pulling on, right? Like these are characters out in the world that you're exploring and discovering, right, as part of your journey here. And so it's not you going to the same location where you expect to see someone delivering a piece of information to you between, you know, specific missions. It is like you exploring the world, finding these people, pulling on all these different threads in order to discover things within this weird and wonderful place.
The feedback is loud and clear. We want to keep the player out in the world, out and exploring, and get information to them for a change. So, we're listening.
And also, I mean, I will say, Allison, you didn't arrive empty-handed. You've got some cool concept art to share with us as well.
I brought some goodies.
Okay.
I brought some presents.
Thank you.
I brought some birthday presents. Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, everyone who's born on
Looking at
October 1st.
concept art is always a joy.
Exactly.
It's a good way to go about it. It's better than wrapping paper covering a PlayStation. I don't know.
It's true. It's true.
Let's go ahead and take a look. So this is, we've got up on screen kind of one of our first pieces of concept art from the future. Can you tell us a little bit about what we're looking at here?
No, I can't. On purpose. What I can tell you is that this is some concept art of our new destination, which, like I said, is a new place that we haven't been to before, which means that these people that you're seeing are people that we haven't met yet. We're going to learn a lot more about them, and I love this piece because the longer that you look at it, same with some of the other art that we've shared so far, the more you start to see things that are kind of familiar all the way out at this new location.
It's like
lots of fun things to discover.
What's the symbol on that banner? Is this a seance or a wedding ceremony? Who knows?
I know,
right?
and I'm not telling.
Telling a single soul.
Nope.
Okay, all right. Plenty to dive into, including we've got another piece of concept art is here as well.
Something we talk about a lot, and like I think the last concept really like spoke to it is like especially when we're developing a new destination like this, like we really think about like what is a storied history that's happened here? What's something that players can like really sink their teeth into and dig deep into? And you know, going into this concept, something that I love about it that's really resonant with me with a lot of the early creative discussions we had on it is that we wanted this place to feel like an exotic world that is just tailor-built around the joy of discovery, right? And then so within this new destination in Apollo, you're going to be discovering powerful abilities in order to uncover secrets in this location and in order to carve a path to the great mystery at the heart of the planet. And that's what like these concepts, you know, when I look at them in retrospective as the team is now actively like building a bunch of this stuff, it's very evocative for me from that feeling of like, hey, how can, it's something Tyson and Alice and I talk a lot about is like, how can we get that like grand mystery in that game, that feeling that there's something right around the corner, that like it's kind of at the heart, has been at the heart of Destiny for a long time. And as we've been closing down the Light Dark saga, it's been an amazing roller coaster ride, but we want to expand and grow Destiny and we want to change it. And you know, that's what I think these concepts are starting to speak for us, trying to show not just us telling of like some of that direction.
I mean, it's exciting to see because I think one thing I've heard you guys talk about a lot as well is, you know, just the inspirations that you want to obviously provide the players. You build these new worlds, but you guys have been diving into a lot of crazy subject matter just on your own to get inspired as well. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of some of the fun reading or listening you've been doing as you've been going through this?
Sure. One of the fun parts about being a creative is that you have to fill the tank with something. And so that means doing a lot of research, finding a lot of other targets in media, or even just like what music you're listening to while you're working on a script. script, right?
Yeah.
I know for our team, something that really inspired us was music of the 1960s. We've listened to a lot of early prog, a lot of King Crimson, and a lot of, The Doors and Jefferson Airplane. We also, there's a lot of Slaughterhouse-Five inside of this.
Cheery.
We love to look for inspiration outside of just games because there's so much in the world that can fill that tank and get us inspired for what's coming next. And we also look to television, of course, too.
Yeah. I mean, TV and movies is like, I talk about all the line. I mean, Allison as the narrative director, much better at referencing text. I'm a little bit more of a visual guy.
Is that the nice way to say that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right,
social media and TikTok have rotted us all.
They've just rotted me.
But yeah, like when we talk about like all this inspirational media, like one of the things, Destiny also being a sci-fi game that we talked a bunch about was for Apollo was Scavenger's Reign. That's something that Allison, remember in early concepting, we were talking about, and we're like, oh wow, that media, that TV show is so great because like it's familiar in some ways, but as you get closer and you really look at their world, it's really strange and different and weird and mysterious. And it really kind of just builds this halo of allure around it that is something that really spoke to us when we're thinking about like how can we introduce something new to the game at the top of Frontiers.
That's exciting. All right. So there's obviously a lot of new inspirations. We had a chance to look at some concept art, but Allison, I got to put you on the spot just one last time. Do you have any other teasers for us or anything you can give us before we move on to the next subject?
I got a weird one.
Okay, even better.
Okay. So imagine going to a mansion, like a really nice, really big fancy house.
Okay,
and
not just in the tutorial to Tomb Raider.
No,
Okay,
like a nice one.
Okay, thank you.
So you're going in and looking at like a parlor room or something, and maybe the owner of the house tells you there's a secret door somewhere in here. And you're looking around and you can see the door that you came through and you can see the window, but it kind of looks like a dead end, like there's nothing in here. And everyone knows that a good secret door comes from like behind a bookcase. Like you go up to a bookcase and pull on a book or a little statue that's been in front of your face the whole time, but you just haven't had the focus on it yet. And if you pull on that, it opens up the secret door, and suddenly what was a dead end looks like an entryway. And that's what this saga is.
Okay, that's very exciting. And it won't be like Young Frankenstein where I get stuck in the door. Or
you will not get stuck in the door. No, I will not let anyone get stuck in the door.
Or Matthew McConaughey behind the bookcase. Murph.
Okay, all right. Thank you again, Allison, so much. There's obviously a lot of cool stuff to dive into, but we'll let you and yours keep crafting. But we've got also one more subject as well. Robbie, I'd love to bug you about one more thing,
Please.
if that's all right. So we've seen some feedback on reward tiers and how there might not be enough variation in loot for players to go ahead and get encouraged to go ahead and keep chasing down more gear. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're all building right now and kind of what that means to you?
Yeah, so this is like very valid feedback, just acknowledging that in the first place, because the first thing we announced was just like, hey, there's some new tiers, right? And then obviously, you're going to look at that and go like, well, I have a bunch of amazing armor and weapons now, so like why does this matter in the future? And so totally, that feedback makes a lot of sense to us. And so what's really top of mind and has been for us for a little while now is how we can make not only chasing gear within individual tiers interesting and the whole system interesting, but also how we can make those higher tiers of gear compelling to chase, right? To have that mountain to climb. And so that comes in two forms that I can talk a little bit about today. One, I can go a little more in depth on, which is our next generation armor. That's going to be coming with Codename Frontiers. And then we have some really early thinking for weapons. Okay. And so for armor, let's start there. Is that okay, Andy?
That's perfect. If you wouldn't mind, Robbie.
I would. Okay, thank you. So let me lean in here to focus a little bit. So for next generation armor, we really want to make armor valuable again. We want to make it easier to understand, and we really want it to have create new build crafting identities. That's something that's like really close to home for us right now because we've had a similar system for quite a while now. And so part of making it valuable, easy to understand, new identities is one of the big pieces is going to be a large stat rework to the armor pieces themselves. And so there's going to be fewer stats on each individual piece of armor. So it makes it way easier to quickly compare pieces of gear and be like, oh, this one's better than that one. I'm building into a specific, discipline, strength, whatever, and you can better understand that. That also means that there's going to be fewer things we call dump stats. Like you looking at a piece of gear and going like, oh man, it only gives me +5 resilience. I don't really want that.
Trash it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's still going to be cases where it's like, oh, it has a lot of resilience, but that's not what I'm building into. But it's just going to be way easier to just glance at stuff.
Very cool.
And figure it out. But beyond that, right, like how can we answer that question of how can next-gen armor have this new build crafting identity? It also, we want to bring new things to the table, right? And so part of the stat rework, we're going to go beyond 100, Andy.
We go beyond sometimes.
Beyond 100.
Yeah, we've gone beyond light.
That's right.
Yep, beyond dark. With prismatic.
What
this
else
just makes sense.
Now we're going to go beyond 100 with armor. Who knew? Like, who knew that's where we go?
It was just hidden in the lore book somewhere, I'm sure, right, Allison?
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Right? Okay. All right. Thank you.
No, we'll
No one double check that.
Yeah,
but beyond 100.
don't check our homework. Yeah. So when we go, so what I mean by going beyond 100. So let's talk about strength, for instance. And so this is some early thinking from the team.
Yeah.
So in the 1 to 100 range, it would still reduce your melee cooldown like it does today. It would still have that, so that would still be really easy to understand. But then from that 101 to 200 range, beyond 100, every point into strength at that point would then give you a chance in order to activate a second melee when power melee becomes charged. So basically you get double melee. You get to double throw your shields or double throw your knives or throw whatever warlock, space magic stuff they throw in. I don't play warlocks.
I'm a hunter.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
I can't jump, sorry.
Withering blades for days, that's it.
But really like the key thing to there, right, is like that starts to create an identity for what you want to build craft into that's very different than just like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm building in melee, lower cooldown, that's cool. But now you can start build crafting into like, okay, I'm going to regularly, especially at the higher end, start to get double melee charges, right? And so the other thing we're considering right now is also renaming that stat from strength to melee so that it's just very specific when you look at the gear and kind of like know what it's
cut right to that chase, right?
Yeah. Another big thing that's coming with next generation armor to the game is set bonuses. And so this is something, I know, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like they're back.
So ready.
We've done like some small versions of it in the past, have been like individual releases, but we're looking at this as like a holistic new system that's coming with pretty much every piece of new legendary armor set that we create, starting with Frontiers.
Okay.
And so these set bonuses are going to come in the form of wearing 2 or 4 pieces of a 5-piece set. So that gives you flexibility in order to wear an exotic at any point. And then also allows you to mix and match different sets. So you can actually start looking at like gear and go like, oh, I have tier 1, tier 2 of one set, tier 3 of other, and I actually want to like mix match them together for different combinatorics, for different build crafting identities. I'm getting like really deep into the weeds here, but the thing that's like really exciting about this is that like one of the perks the team is playing around with that these new set bonuses could give you could be one that's built all around like Tex Mechanica style play, which is like all about hip firing, right? And all about that yeehaw. And then like the more you build into that, you're going to be buffing your Tex Mechanica weapons. And so that's just like one example. But yeah, it's the whole space is just going to like really expand and just become a lot easier to manage in your head and also build complexity into. And so I'm super stoked for it.
No, you guys obviously have been doing a lot of great stuff. So we've touched on armor here briefly. All that sounds awesome, but can you tell us a little bit more about weapons and kind of, how they're going to evolve as well?
Yeah, so we're a little earlier on weapons right now. We wanted to talk about next gen armor because we have a lot of juicy, good plans coming together right now. But for weapons, the thing I can say is that like in the game today, we have higher tiers of weapons to chase, like adepts and raid weapons, right? And so those things with them come with exclusive perks that basically, cut above the noise of other weapons you might be earning in any individual release. And so we know from the tiering perspective of weapons themselves that like, hey, we already have this kind of touchstone for us that we see that works pretty well. And it's like, so it's really like, how can we meet or clear that bar, right? Like how can we create those exclusive chases at the top of that aspirational mountain for players to climb?
So actually, additionally too, we've heard some concerns that, obviously we're going to maybe be over-indexing on just bringing back reprised weapons. And Guardians will just be out there chasing down something and re-earning something that's just sitting in the vault anyway. Can you tell us a little bit more about like kind of the weapon chase and what you guys are planning on doing with each, subsequent release?
Yeah, so just to like make sure to clear the air here a little bit, right? Like every expansion, every season, every raid, every dungeon, there's gonna be new weapons, right? We're not slowing down there in terms of like making a lot of compelling new weapon content.
Cool. Okay.
But the thing about reprisals and revisions that I think is true for a lot of Destiny players is like you have that favorite gun, right? You have that gun that you loved at one point in time, and over time it's just not as useful in the contemporary tuning, activity, sandbox, whatever, right? Like just something about it isn't as good over the years. And so like we did with the Brave Arsenal and Into the Light, like that's our touchstone for like, hey, how can we go in and update, you know, fan favorite weapons, bring them back, breathe some new life into them, and make them interesting to use again. And I also think what's great about that is that people who never got to use, you know, their Recluse or Better Devils or something that we haven't reprised just yet, right? Is like, oh, that's their first time experience with it, and they've heard how cool it is.
To all the Guardians who are going to dive into Revenant and get to try Chroma Rush for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
I am trying that gun for the first time. It's so good. I'm glad it's coming back.
It's great.
Okay, that all sounds awesome. So everything that Robbie just spoke to, there's going to be a next-gen article, a next-gen armor article going up on Bungie.net after the stream wraps up. But Robbie, is there anything else you want to say?
Yeah, so something that I should probably touch on is like, we're talking a lot about like all this cool gear and like, but like there's a question here, right? That like that immediately becomes posed of like why does it matter, right? Like why do I care about it? And so we've talked a little bit, right, about the fact that there's going to be customizable difficulty coming in Destiny with Frontiers, and then also changes to modifiers and things like that with like the Banes that we announced in the recent blog post. And so to making expansions deeply replayable, kind of like I was talking about earlier in our section, and then the customizable difficulty, and then the new modifier systems. Like these are all things that are being built into a structure so that you're going to need to chase that high tier gear. You're going to need to craft that complex set bonus, perfect combination of Tex Mechanica gear in order to take on some of the hardest challenges inside of the game. And so this isn't just about changing gear. This is also figuring out how we can bring new and interesting challenge to Destiny and how we can really like breathe life into the challenge of the game.
Very exciting. Awesome.
Yeah. Should be fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, plenty more information on that to arrive on the blog that's going to be arriving on Bungie.net shortly after this. But I don't think I'm going to be able to top what Robbie just said. So we'll go ahead and get ready to go ahead and close out the stream here today by first thanking all of you fine folks at home for joining us today. We love getting a chance to put these streams on and hang out with all of you in the community, and it doesn't mean anything unless you show up. So thank you for taking the time to join us today. As a reminder as well, there's a Twitch shop going on right now. That's a heads up. You can probably see it pinned in chat, but just to remind everyone at home that if you've earned the Twitch drop, I should say, rather, it will be arriving on your Guardian when Revenant launches on October 8th. So if you don't get it today, worry not. That's by design. It'll be arriving on October 8th, and you'll get to put your shiny new emblem on. And of course, a huge thanks to our guests here, Robbie and Allison. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Andy.
Absolutely. And then the folks from our first segment as well, Chris, Clayton, and Jerome as well, Incomparable. Thank you so much for taking them to join us. And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the amazing folks doing the actual heavy lifting behind the scenes, Peyton, Ashley, and Justin. Thank you so much. Of course, Ashley, one of the folks that helped design a lot of the stuff we looked at today. So thank you all for taking the time to joining us from the throne world, as we call it here, back here in the studio. But yeah, a quick recap. We talked today a little bit about what's to arrive with Act 1 of Revenant, arriving just next week, next reset. It'll be arriving on October 8th. Make sure to go ahead and sign up for the Twitch Rivals Dungeon Race. It'll be shipping out on October 11th. And remember, if you're one of those top 3 teams to go ahead and make your way through, then you'll be able to get the cool embroidered hoodie as well. But there's going to be more information about that arriving on our socials. And then I think that's about it. I think I've concluded my notes here on my laptop. So again, thank you all for taking the time to join us. Make sure and follow us at Destiny the Game across the board on whatever social channel you like. Make sure and check out our Discord as well. We're making some updates out there in terms of the announcement channels. And keep an eye out for the TWID for all this great information. And lastly, but very not least, make sure and head out to Bungie.net after this stream concludes. Read that Next Gen Armor article. We're giving you guys lots of information. Is it fair? No, but we like you, so we're going to keep doing it anyway. So in the meantime, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other, and we'll see you all Starside.